Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Labella Associates, dedicated to the pursuit of partnership for more than 40 years, offering services in the development of buildings, infrastructure, environmental, and energy projects. Labella, powered by partnership, labellapc.com. And Plant Designs, offering custom interior plantscape design and maintenance services for homes and businesses for 50 years, with seasonal decor and color rotation programs. Plant Designs, landscaping the great indoors. More at plantdesigns.com.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Raquel Stephen. Today on Connections, we're talking about short films because short films are having a moment. Audiences are consuming more short-form video than ever before. And for student filmmakers, the short film is a space to take risk, experiment with new ideas, and share stories that might not otherwise be told. Short films can capture a single emotion, a fleeting moment, or a bold new idea. They also give us a glimpse into the next generation of storytellers. Today, we'll talk with students from RIT School of Film and Animation about what it means to make films right now, how the medium is changing, and what they hope audiences take away from their work. And on August 28th, you can see some of these films for yourself in the third installment of RIT Shorts airing on WXXI-TV. We'll talk more about this series a little later, but first, let's meet our guest for the hour. In studio with me, I have Christine Banna. She's assistant professor in RIT School of Film and Animation. I have Deanna Moorehead. She is a Master of Fine Arts student whose film A Fish and a Bird is part of this year's showcase. And I have Vinh Nguyen. I love saying that. I'm going to say your name just because. I'm letting you know that, okay?
Totally fine.
Vinh Nguyen, I'm going to call on you all the time. Also a Master's of Fine Arts student whose film I Had To is premiering in RIT Shorts. And joining us on the phone is Colin O'Brien, who graduated this year with a bachelor's in film and animation. His film Stuffy the Musical was featured in last year's showcase, and the soundtrack is even available on Spotify. And like always, we welcome you, our listeners, to join in on this conversation. You can call 1-844-295-TALK. That's 1-844-295-8255 or 585-263-9994, or email us at connections@wxxi.org or comment in our YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for this discussion. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. Welcome to WXXI Connections. And Colin, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. So welcome, guys. Colin, we'll start with you. Let's start with, can you tell about your short film, Stuffy the Musical, and how it came to life? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Stuffy the Musical was my, junior film, we call it, essentially. And it was basically going into, the spring semester, I knew I was going to make that. And I had, just a not good fall. Fall just kind of sucked. And I was like, I'm not going to do that again. How can I make this fun? And I was like, I just kind of want to make something silly. And I want to make it with my friends. And I want to, do a musical, because that sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And if it's terrible, that's okay, because I'm just a little student. And so, I kind of just do all of those things. And then with that, I kind of wrote the song, and we, thought about the idea. And then, I had a bunch of friends that were on the project, from the start that were really fun, Jacob French, who was the lead. I, knew I had him, and so I kind of built the character around him. And, I was working a lot with my DP, Nash Schneider, to kind of figure out story stuff. And, yeah, so it's just a great time.
It's great. And tell us what Stuffy the Musical is about. Is it about your pet, your stuffed animal? What is it about?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's about Jamie. His character is moving to college. He's, about to start, and he's super excited. But his stuffed animal has just gone missing. And, he just obviously he can't go to school without him. And that's kind of where the conflict arises. And then there's a lot of singing and dancing.
So how much of this is true, Colin? Do you have a stuffed animal you can't go anywhere without?
I don't have that, I have to say. I do remember when I was a kid, my family, we went to the Adirondacks, and there was a ropes course out there. And I got a T-shirt from that place. And I swear I wore it every day of third and fourth and 5th grade. And I was like, it was an argument every morning. I remember with my dad, because he'd be like, please tell me you're not wearing that again. And I'd be like, no. And I would have it like underneath the sweatshirt. And it was just like, I got really good at sneaking around, I guess. At least sneaking T-shirts.
Well, that's great for laundry day, right? Just one shirt to
Yeah,
wash.
exactly. That's what I was trying to do, but no one really appreciated it, I guess.
And Colin, a lot of people might be surprised to hear a student film has like a full musical score. Like, how did you approach that?
Yeah, good question. I just kind of, what did I do? I knew going into it that obviously that I wanted to do it, and so I think a big thing that I just knew it was going to be hard. I think we all knew that, and so a big thing we tried really hard to do was just to prepare as much as humanly possible. So there's actually, like, we did a bunch of previs and like pre-visualization. So there's a whole version of the film that my DP just shot on his phone, and I'm actually just the lead actor, and I'm just singing and dancing around the house, preparing. A really good friend of ours, a bunch of them, we like shot the film in their house, so they were super nice, and we were able to actually just go over there a bunch before the shoot, and then we would just like show up at night and just kind of like mess around for like a couple hours and like play with stuff. So then that way, when we got to the shoot, we just knew exactly what we needed, and we were able to kind of do it really quickly.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I know you graduated. What are you currently doing? Are you still filmmaking?
Yes, I am. Thanks for asking. I'm doing a lot of like freelance sound design and like composing work, which is really fun. I actually just did a project with Banna that's showing at the Fringe Festival.
Nice.
Shout that out. And that's like been super exciting. And I'm actually in the process of moving to Brooklyn.
Oh, nice. So how has this experience at RIT and doing RIT shorts kind of shaped your thinking about your career as a filmmaker?
I think the big thing that I was really fortunate about and that I really appreciated at RIT was just the amount of work you have to do, which is maybe not the best way to say it, but I like going there. I have a film degree. I don't have a music degree.
Yeah.
When I got there, I was like, oh, I like writing music. And the RIT's program was super encouraging about being like, yeah, like go do that thing.
Yeah.
Like you love that thing.
Yeah.
You should go do that work as much as you can. And I feel like really like well prepared about that. And like I loved that I was able to just kind of do a lot outside of class, just working on projects with people. And so that is by far the thing I'm like most grateful for, I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. And Christine, from a professor's perspective, what does a showcase like RIT Shorts mean for students? We heard a little bit of what Colin said, and the push to do whatever makes them happy and explore their passions. What is that? What does it mean for students, this RIT Shorts experience?
Oh gosh, well I can extrapolate what it means for you all, but they're such a great group of students.
Yeah.
Like I can't say that enough. The level of collaboration that Colin mentioned and the level of professionalism, but also not losing the playfulness and losing the exploration and experimentation that they all do.
Yeah.
And I think this is such a great representation for our students because it kind of shows a bit of everyone's work. So both Deanna and Vinh are some of our graduate students. Kenneth Reynolds, who isn't here right now, his capstone film, his senior film, Encyclopedia Galactica, will also be part of the shorts programming. Who Colin was wrote the musical composition for. Wow! So a lot of us all work together, and I've been lucky enough to call myself every single one of theirs professors for different courses throughout their years at RIT. So I think it's just an amazing opportunity, and we're so thankful to WXXI to shine a light on the amazing work that our film and animation students are doing in both the undergraduate and graduate level.
Yeah, and Colin, the theme was musical last year. Did that push your love for music?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, like I thought it was fun, and like it was cool to see some of the other projects that were like also musicals, like kind of like all together in one little like program. That was like really fun, and like
yeah. So what's the theme this year, Christine?
Oh gosh, I think it was an open theme, but okay. I think we have a little bit of every single discipline in film and animation represented.
Yes.
And so I'm sure we will talk more about the specifics of the media, but we have 3D animation, we have live production, we have stop motion, we have experimental 2D. We have a little bit of everything that RIT School of Film and Animation has to offer in this programming this year.
Yeah, and I know themes, short films are so concise. You have to
Yes.
so focused. Do themes kind of help the creative process, Deanna or Vinh?
I mean, I definitely think, yes, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with you've got to pick something tight and sort of, I think one of the first things that you learn as a short filmmaker, as a student is scope and how to do that. Oftentimes you learn it by doing it wrong, by not scoping appropriately. You get a little too big. And I think, something that kind of helps hone in and maybe it's like, you make a playlist for your characters and that's what you listen to before you sit down and work on it, or you have like reference media that you're pulling from. There's different ways to scope yourself, but I think sticking to some sort of, I don't know, like a mantra. I don't know if you, Vin, had something that you like went back to while you worked, but a lot of the time I would be like, okay, I wrote a new draft of this. What did I even want to say in the first place? And then does this say that? And so I think that is an idea of returning to a consistent theme to keep yourself tight because it has to stay short and still pack a punch.
Yeah. And Vin, wait, how do you narrow down your ideas? Take me through your creative process.
Well, with experimental films, it's like, you never really know what you're going to get. So like you kind of start off and like, man, like here's all these ideas I want to put in. And then, like in the class, it's really cool because you get to workshop it with everybody else, and like everyone comes up with all these ideas for you, like, hey, maybe you should do this instead, or like maybe this works over here. So like it's a big collaborative, even if it's like your film alone, like you're still working with other people. It's a huge collaborative space, and I think that's like a big part of why a lot of us love this, because we're creating something, but we're also creating something. Like when you're feeling lost, like those like workshops and critiques actually help a lot, and they kind of like help you like condense down ideas better. You kind of like start to see things that you never really saw. So that's something I appreciated a lot with in Christine's class and everybody else's, because like scope can be really huge at the beginning. You're like, man, I want to make this huge film, and then everyone's like, let's condense it down just a little bit more. And then you try to figure out how to do that, and throughout the months and semester you kind of land somewhere. So
Christine, this camaraderie you build with your classmates and others in the program, is that intentional? Is that how you set up your curriculum?
Very much so, actually. I try to treat how I run a critique space as not like the full authority in the classroom, as though that is naturally where the professor kind of lands, but I try to put myself on even footing, and I might steer students in a certain direction because of my experience and what I've seen before. But ultimately, it is their films that they are creating. It's their art that they're making. And so I really, and I know I'm not alone. My colleagues do this too, but I'm really passionate about creating a collaborative space where it's safe to throw out even bad ideas at each other and fish through it all to get to somewhere better, like where the films need to land.
Yeah. And Colin, I want to talk about bad ideas. So tell me about...
Speaking of bad ideas, Colin.
Tell me about creating Stuffy the Musical and how, take me through your process and how having like a team and collaborative efforts and camaraderie within the classroom help you kind of compress or your film.
It was really helpful to have like Nash, like the DP, and then Karina, who's the production designer, were two people that I kind of was bouncing ideas off of a lot. And so it was really nice to just have that immediate feedback and just being able to hear if there's a bad idea fast. Because if you hear there's a bad idea fast, then you know to try and find something else. That was something that was super helpful. Working with Kenneth Reynolds for his film Encyclopedia Galactica when I was doing the music for that. A lot of that film, we wanted to make the music just very alien. And very like space or just like not of Earth, which is really fun. And I had a lot of time experimenting with that, a lot of fun. But also like there were definitely some things that were amiss where I would show something to Kenneth and he'd be like, oh, that's just not pleasant to listen to. And I'd be like, you're right. It's just not any good. And then we would be able to move on. We kind of just got over ourselves. And we would find something better, and it like worked out great, I think. And
that's part of it, taking that constructive criticism and adjusting and creating great work. Your film, Deanna, a fish and a bird.
Yes.
Tell us about the story you wanted to tell and how you approached it visually.
Yeah, totally. I think I liked hearing what Colin said, so it was good to have that to start with, because I think I approached it from a same place. The previous film I had made just like didn't hit for me. I learned a lot making it, but it was like too much, and I didn't give myself enough space to do it, and I didn't know how to do what I wanted to do as I started it. And so I also turned to a musical to like have a little bit of fun, I think, and take myself a little less seriously while making something that actually ended up being more personal to me than my previous projects, which was kind of neat. So to give, I guess, a gist of it, it's about a fish and a bird. Shocking. I'll hold for gasps here. And they fall in love with each other through the sort of like obfuscating surface of Lake Ontario. So there's a like, I can't really see that swoopy creature up there, but it's mysterious to me, so I love it. And then the bird looks down and sees this like sort of shimmering thing under the water, and it's mysterious to me, and so I love it. And also it's an opera, by the way. And so they sing opera at and sort of with each other through the surface of the water. But it also sort of comes out of this. It's like an old African proverb that goes, a fish and a bird may fall in love, but where would they make their home? And to me, that's a really like interesting thought, because I think you could choose to play it like, how do they build that together, or can they not? And that was the sort of question, that theme question that I kept coming back to is, am I writing something that feels like you could sum it up with just that little proverb? Like, is it snappy and shareable with people? So that was what I kept sort of bringing myself back to. Was that, and I won't tell you how it ends, because I'd like for people to watch it and find out, but I think it's a fun ride. And then you asked how I approached it visually. I'm a 3D artist. Most of what I do that I like to do the most is the rigging part, which I won't get too nitty gritty on this, but basically part of the process of building like 3D assets is putting a skeleton inside of those characters. Even though they don't really exist, they need to be able to move in order to be animated. So I put like bones, and I throw a bunch of math and expressions on them, and I put controllers on it so that people can make them move and make it come to life. And that's where I really like to do most of the work. So I knew my output of this film needed to be like these two animal characters. So I spent the whole first semester just like crushing out these realistic animals. And then I wanted, I guess, in the vein of taking myself a little less seriously this year, I wanted to make sure that it was like funny and a little uncanny to watch. So I landed on like the way that watching actually stop motion pieces makes me feel. I wanted to do something that like felt like you could reach out and touch it. Christine had told me on a previous film, like I want to eat your film, which was the highest compliment. And I was like, I want that again. She better want to eat these guys. So I was looking for like a tactility and a realism, like ew, they're falling in love and it's an opera and it's drama, but they also look like they'd be stinky. Like it looks like you filmed it with a dead fish. So that's sort of what I was going for, to just hit like what I was hoping was a funny but also poignant spot. So it was a lot of experimenting, but also in a year to churn out something of that scale, it's a little bit like, okay, make your plans and then like jump in and commit. So that was an early direction I had in the planning process the previous semester, and I like ran with it. And that was how it turned out. It stayed in a realistically tactile but still sort of animated space. And then the animation is very stop motion inspired, but I don't work in stop motion, so I did it in digital.
Wow.
So I feel like that took a turn, but
so it's an opera singing bird and fish.
Yeah, you got it.
Yes, that I have a love dynamic going on with skeletal parts, but dirty, but want to make you eat it.
Yeah, you've got those were the bullet points.
That's
I feel
fine,
like,
yeah.
and they're singing in, one of them sings in French and the other one sings in Italian. Like it's a ride.
It's
a
You're
ride.
Amazing. You're amazing.
It's something.
I can't wait. No, I'm excited to see how it all came together,
Cool.
honestly, Deanna. And I know, Vin, your film is called I Had To.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it. What inspired it?
A lot of things. So when we were in class kind of like brainstorming these ideas, I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. And I noticed like I used to like journal a lot when I was like in middle school. And I was like, let's go back and see what my middle school brain was saying. And I was like, oh man, this is like really like, young and kind of naive. So like I wanted to take that poem and like I took a poem out of that journal and I just kind of rewrote it a little bit, kind of like refined it in a more mature kind of like sense. And I brought it to class and I started like experimenting around with like, oh, like what could I connect with? And I started pulling in footages of the Vietnam War because my family is rooted to that. My parents are immigrants of the Vietnam War, and because of that, they had to flee here, and they were refugees here, and built a life, and gave me and my brother a life to live, and I wanted to really draw on that because like most of my kind of school journey has been trying to figure stuff out like that. So I figured this was like the next best like evolution of it. So I took that and I just kind of like melded the two mediums together, and I was like, oh wait, there's a bridge here. Like this poem's talking about, the monotony of working and kind of just like living a day-to-day life the same, and like just kind of being numb to that. And I kind of bridged that idea to, refugees and people having to like being affected by the diaspora of, a war, and what they have to deal with when, they move to a different country and having to like settle and live like a entirely different life. Like what's that for them? And that's something like, okay, that's thinking of that, like how does that meaning of the poem bridge with the meaning of them having to live a new life, go day to day completely different, and like try to rebuild their life. And I felt in like a really sweet spot to that, and I just kind of like everything kind of ended up falling into place really well. And I just I got to a point where I was just iterating on top of my version, so it was just refining and refining more and more of like what I had before, and I just got to like a really good spot where I was like, yeah, I think this is pretty good.
Yeah. So how do you feel about telling, and both of you, and Colin as well, how do you feel about telling personal stories? Okay, telling personal stories in this medium. I know Colin has to leave soon, so Colin, can you answer that? How do you feel about telling your personal story?
I mean, it's scary. I feel like it's the easiest thing to say. It's definitely like at the end of every semester at RIT, one of the things we do that's really amazing is we show everyone's work at like a screenings event, essentially, like our version of finals. And so you get into a theater on the campus, and you show your film to like anywhere from like 30 to like 300 people, and it's like I don't know what hard drugs are like, but it has to be really similar because it's very exciting. I guess it's very heart pounding.
Yeah.
But it's also like great to kind of pour yourself out there, and then you go and like everyone's very welcoming and it's generally really positive, and it's just like you get to connect with people on another level that's like unlike anything else.
Yeah. And Deanna, I know your story is very in depth, right? It's based on an African proverb. Telling these stories on this medium and getting personal, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah, Colin's right. Scared, I think, is a great, and moving on. But I don't know. I think that's why you do it is what Colin said, and what he's getting at is that it's scary, but it's so like rewarding to have that moment where even one person who maybe doesn't already know you and doesn't know how it's personal to you say like, oh, this like resonated with me. This made sense to me, or even like oh, I thought this was cool. This reminded me of this thing. Some people who are like fish nerds have come to ask me about the fish, and I'm like, well, hey, like something grabbed you.
Yes.
And I think that's like kind of the dream when you make anything is that it's about like connection, and there's something really nice about the idea of connection with a stranger, or connection with somebody who's like listening to this programming who I don't even know exists, who might like find something in my story that I made over a year, just like kind of because I wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know, not to get too big about it, I guess, but that's like the human existence. But that's why people make stuff in any medium, whether it's film or the written word or music or anything like that. I think is what if one person like needed to see or hear this and they did? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Isn't it cool that I spent all that time on it? And I feel for me, that's it.
That's why I'm so interested in seeing the ending, because I'm a hopeless romantic. So
Me too, girl.
When you started talking, I said, oh, opposites attract. Oh, I was doing the whole romance. I was romanticizing the heck out of your film already.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how you ended that.
Thank
you.
you.
And for you, Vin, you're getting very personal, and you're telling your family's story. How is this medium helping you do that, and how are you feeling about that?
I mean, I'm going to echo what Deanna and Colin said. Like, it's a very scary thing because it's a very personal and like, kind of deep inside, and not a lot of people get to see it. But I feel like it's not like a sense of duty, but like it is because like I have the the ability to do it, and my parents don't. And I like to do that, to share the stories that people that can't like actually share, and like they don't have the means to. I think that's important because like even though this war happened like decades ago, like things like this are still happening, and like I may not look like the people that are things that are happening to them now, but like it's the same story repeating over and over again. So like hopefully it's like they see my film or something akin to it, and they can see that there's like a lesson almost there to like, okay, like this is still happening, and it's still a thing that's affecting people, and as we kind of live as go
especially
on.
now in this political climate.
Yeah.
Christine, when you watch your students work, what do you notice about the trends that you're seeing in their storytelling and their technique? What makes you want to eat it? Like Deanna said.
I think in the past, I said lick it or touch it.
Something.
Maybe not eat
Some
it.
combo of those. Something.
It was tactile, right?
I'm making stuff up.
All
Yeah,
five,
no,
all
you're
five
good.
senses.
You're good. Truly, I think to kind of just piggyback off of what everyone was saying, something that I know I've said in some of my courses, and I'm sure you guys have heard from me, is that authenticity is like palpable, and if you keep your art at arm's distance, you're not going to, or at arm's length, you're not going to touch those people like as you're actually like sharing the work that you're making, or even maybe even feel as like strongly about the work that you made. So if we take those risks and we are truth telling in our work, it's palpable. Like folks who are educated in film and animation and just any just consumer or viewer will be able to tell that. Some of the trends I've been seeing with our students is like a hunger to express themselves,
Wow.
I'd say.
You guys are great with words here.
Oh,
We're on a food theme. It's
we are.
like,
Yeah. Unintentional puns. Yeah, no, but truly, like a hunger to express themselves. And our students are very detail oriented, and sometimes, especially in like the course that Vinh made his film I Had to in, like Radical Cinema, myself and Professor John Knight at RIT, we teach this course that allows students to work outside of like the industry pipeline of short and feature films. And when we start to like interrogate what biases, what rules we have for ourselves as artists, about the content we make, about the decisions we're making with our art, it really starts to make everything bare, and I think we can get to deeper, more impactful art quicker. So that's something that I definitely try to instill in my students, especially in that course.
And we have, I believe one of your students made a comment on YouTube, but we'll
Oh,
talk.
fabulous.
We'll touch on it when we get back after this break. Stay with us. We're at WXXI Connections talking about short films.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, believing an informed and engaged community is a connected one. marycariola.org.
And we're back with WXXI Connections, and today we're talking about short films. And to help me with this discussion, I have in-studio guests. I have Deanna Moorehead. She's a Master's of Fine Arts student with RIT. I also have Vinh Nguyen, also a Master of Fine Arts student, and Christine Banna, the Assistant Professor at RIT School of Film and Animation. Now, I have a comment here on YouTube from Brian, and Brian said, I've acted in 25 plus RIT student films. Other than students regularly writing outside scenes to be filmed in the middle of winter, it's a fun time. All right, the sets are very professional. What is your response to Brian's comment? And he has some experience with you guys, obviously, 25 plus student films. And besides the winter, he said it's fun and professional. How does that make you feel, Christine?
Oh, super proud. I mean, a lot of our faculty and really try to instill in our students a professional decorum, even out like as soon as like the end of their freshman year, early sophomore year. We have courses that really teach our students how to interact with clients and how to interact with collaborators and talent. And so we've been really lucky to be collaborators with a lot of local talent in the greater Rochester area.
Yeah, and continue to gloat about RIT's School of Film and Animation. What makes your program more distinct from other programs?
Oh gosh, I could go on all day about that. We are one of the very few programs that has incorporated so many different disciplines on even footing. So we have the School of Film and Animation that's split up into animation, live production, and motion picture sciences. And so we're one of the few film programs in the country that has a Bachelor of Science that's actually embedded in a fine art program with our MPS students. We also have, under live production, we then split up into crafts like directing, like sound design, like cinematography, and others, screenwriting. With animation, we have different tracks of 3D digital, stop motion / experimental, and 2D digital. So, but even though we're putting ourselves into all these categories, circling back to what was said by everyone, there's a lot of cross-pollination that's happening. There's a lot of collaboration and a lot of students who wear multiple hats and want to try multiple different things. Yeah. And like Kenneth Reynolds, Encyclopedia Galactica, he's one of our live production students, but a core foundational medium of his capstone is stop motion. So he's a student who went through our live production program, but also took multiple animation courses and incorporated them into his final film.
So there's a lot underneath one umbrella there that you can touch on. You
100%.
can, dip your toe in anything there. And for Deanna and Vinh, what made you choose RIT's master's program in fine arts?
Well,
do you want? I can. This happens a lot.
At the same time.
I'll jump in. I mean, for me, I think it really was that sort of ability to split off into specified disciplines for me. I think especially at the master's level. So I guess for some context, I didn't do my undergrad degree in animation. I got a visual art and computer science degree, knowing that I wanted to do animation type work, but just sort of like came at it from a weird angle. So I knew I was going to need, in order to do the type of work making I wanted to do eventually, a program that would tailor me towards, I guess, like the industry or prepare me for that. And I think a lot of the programs, and Banna, you can speak to if your experience looking at programs was the same, but I felt like a lot of programs at the master's level were specifically offering things that didn't feel as industry focused. They felt really, really independent, really, really like, I don't know, I make a joke, but like, I'm going to make a film like entirely with like my own blood and chicken feathers type, like, which like is awesome, but wasn't what I needed at the stage of my career that I was going into. So I was looking at like pools of programs that were, I guess, like industry focused, or at least had the flexibility to let me work that way. And RIT was definitely one of those. And I had the computer science background. I wanted to do like tech type work. Yeah. And because of all of those other programs that are sort of alongside our field of study that Christine mentioned, I had access to classes, or at least like people who could tell me what I wanted to know about doing those things. So that was it for me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit kind of in a similar realm where like I wasn't sure, because I wanted to do animation as a kid, so I was like, it kind of like stemmed from that. But I'm also a local, so like this was like great, like, oh, RIT's right here, I live here, so it's perfect. It's like a 10-minute drive for me. But my undergrad was mainly about just like, I was in an English degree, creative writing, so like I was kind of on this path already of like, crafting and creating my own story. So I was like, what's the next best thing? And like I wanted to fuse that love of anime and cartoons as a kid with my writing, and I was like, oh, RIT's got an animation program, a film and animation program, so let's try that out. And then that's why I'm here now. But like, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities in the program itself where they push you to, and they give you all of these like materials to be ready for in industry type level jobs, and they kind of prepare you mentally, and it's just been a really good time at the program. And I don't think any other program that I've looked at was kind of giving off that vibe, so that's why I ended up just choosing RIT. So.
Yeah, and something about creative writing would guide you into where you need to be. Yeah. I took a creative writing course, and I'm like, oh, I want to write. Yeah, I want to found it. Yeah, I found it. Right, journalism. It made me decide immediately, like, okay, stay on this path. So something about creative writing just does it for me. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about film school? And either of you can answer.
I can't go first again.
I
You
can't
guys
go-
can both
yeah.
look at me.
Christine, what do you
Okay.
think? What do you think?
I think there's a lot of different misconceptions. Like sometimes students think there's a very specific way to make moving image work. Like come in with like unconscious biases based on the type of content they consume or just like, right? And I think it's one of the most time intensive like visual art mediums you can work in, no matter the discipline.
Yes.
Whether it's any type of live production or animation, it is time intensive, and just where that time gets put into it slightly differs based on your discipline. So, but it is to make a timed medium, it takes a lot of time. And so I think there's a big misconception about the labor in what goes into making a film, especially like you see something that's a 3-minute animation, and you're like, 3 minutes doesn't seem like a very long amount of time, but 3 minutes could take a year to make.
Yeah.
And it is an extremely laborious process.
Yes.
So, and going back to the theme of today's broadcast, making a short is actually sometimes harder than making a longer piece because everything has to be so tight. Every second is precious. But on the flip side, like you mentioned, Raquel, like you can be more free and you can experiment more and you can take chances. So it's both more precious in some ways in the time that you have, but also in the labor, it frees us up a tiny bit more. Yeah.
And what do you you guys think
I feel
about
like
the biggest misconception?
I feel like the biases. I feel like I want to challenge any freshman coming into the film and school
Challenge.
animation.
The gauntlet.
Yeah, where there's a lot of biases of like like animation styles, filmmaking styles. I challenge them to keep that mentality by the end of their program, because the second you're in here, there's so much like diversity in ways of thinking, and it kind of shapes just like your workflow a lot more. So like a lot of students, I mean, I came in with preconceptions already. I was like, oh man, I'm going to do this. But like I ended up making, multiple experimental films. And I was like, I never thought I would make this. So it really, the program challenges you anyways to be as creative as possible. So yeah, I feel like any misconception about film or animation, like you're going to lose that the second you go into this program. So.
And I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I got you.
Deanna.
I got you.
Yeah.
For me, I think, I mean, hard to agree with the things that the other two said. I think to throw another thing on there, even among like filmmakers, I think there is an idea that, especially again, when you're making things in short format, that it's doesn't have to be a team effort. There's a like, I'm the filmmaker, or especially in animators even, it's like it's not a group project. I do it because I can sit there by myself. But we've already talked a little bit just, in this conversation about how that it never happens that way. And I think that films do happen that way, I guess, like suffer for it. And I think that even if you've hand touched absolutely everything, lots of other people, whether through conversations related to your project or otherwise, I thanked a lot of people who never like sat down with me about Fishbird, but who sat down with me at other times in my career who absolutely played a role in that project because of that. Like, it takes a village, I think, to make something, even in the short format and even if it's an animation. So I think that's a misconception.
That was great. That was great, Deanna. I have another comment on from our YouTube. It's from Regan, and Regan said, "What was an obstacle?" A question for the group. What was an obstacle during pre-production, production, or post-production you encountered when you had to when you had to either pivot or scrap something and start over?
Oh, do you have something off
And
the
how
rip, or-
did you decide how to pivot, what to scrap, what to change?
I think it was just rewriting the poem, and also like I had to record myself speaking those lines for my film, and I was working very closely with those voice lines. So like it was a whole semester of me just in my content. So like that was the hardest part for me, to just hear myself talk about this, and it was like emotionally draining for a long time. So I had to bake in like, okay, you need to like step away from this project for like a couple of days or something. But luckily I'm also a psycho, and I made 2 films that semester. So I had another film to also work on too. So I had like for some, like, yeah, it's I don't recommend doing that, but like I did have something to fall back on to
yeah.
do. So
PSA, don't.
yeah, I don't recommend anyone doing 2 films in a semester.
Yeah, and it's okay to take a step back and
Yeah.
regroup, recharge, and approach it from a different angle. Any obstacles you had to face?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Any. What to pick from? I think I was going to say obstacle number 1, sitting across from Reagan all those hours in the grad lab. Hey, Reagan. Just kidding. No, and I think, I mean, for me, the biggest thing was I'm going to take a moment to sort of glaze my composer. I worked with Julian Stewart Burns, who's a master's student in the composition program at Eastman. And we met just because I was reaching out to faculty at Eastman about who could help me with this big project undertaking. I am a music enjoyer. I'm not qualified enough to do the building of what I wanted to add to my piece. So I knew I needed like a partner. And our collaboration process could be a whole like hour podcast on its own. Like it was so awesome and so new to work that way. But towards the end, we had a live recording of the musicians, which was so cool. I got to go sit in on the session and like stand up there with the conductor and be like, "Hi, you're working on my film. Thank you so much." Very cool.
Amazing.
But the way that sort of like animation is such a time-heavy medium, I already had to be working sort of in real time on my animations to be building towards something that would be finishable, right? And then really late in the second semester, I don't know if you remember what week this was because I kind of blacked it out, but I got the final
trauma.
Right, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But I got the final recording back of my beautiful, perfect like scored soundtrack and the actual live recording of it all, and it was timed a little differently from the digital version that I had been working from, just because like that's how it works when you play live music. But I had like something like I don't know, when I edited it down, something like 50 seconds or something, which again, in the scale of filmmaking time is crazy, where it was longer than what I had been planning on and what I had been working towards. And Christine's making like a somebody save me face, because it really was, I had to crash out. I had to take a day to just like put it down and cry, like truly. Yeah. And then you go, okay, well, I only have a couple weeks left of this. Let's see what I could do. Let me pick it back up. So I picked it back up and found spots where I could repeat animation or where I was okay cutting things, or not all animation is created equal. So I was like, what can I do that's easy but doesn't take away? Because I wanted this music to shine, and I stand by that composition and that recording being like exactly what I wanted emotionally. I just had that time barrier. So for me, it was that pick it up, turn it around weekend. Yeah, sometimes you got to put it down and cry for a day, and that is part of the process. Those are clockable hours.
And Christine, how do you deal with your students when they have these mishaps and they do have to pivot and they do have to take time to take a step back and cry and find solutions? How do you deal with that?
I mean, I'm a big believer in like we all need, because like while we're in like the act of making an artwork like this is very emotional, and sometimes we have to be in our feelings a little bit and like play them out, because if we squash them, that doesn't help the process, and it's not healthy either. So I actually really quite enjoy the problem solving aspect of working with students. I've been really lucky to work with both of them one-on-one in different capacities, and I try to put myself in their shoes and put my own biases at the door of like filmmaking, and just try to see the project for what it is. And usually there's not any one solution. It's like, okay, if you want to do this path, these are the things to consider. And that's how you're feeling right now. But may I present to you this other way that we could think about it? And so I tried my best to put myself in their shoes while also help giving them like almost guardrails to help the project proceed and help them work forward in a healthy manner.
Yeah, so not be intrusive, but just give them just allow them to continue with their creative space, but
100%.
Provide some guidance.
And support.
Important. Yes. And I want to talk about TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, right, where we're seeing all these short films. What's the role of more traditional short films in that ecosystem? And do you think it's hurting the short film process or the value of short films and all the work you do?
That's a good question.
My knee-jerk answer is to say no. I don't think that any amount of like more people making more things could possibly be detrimental. I think like put your stuff out there. I don't know. Like I don't know, my mom tells stories about, like, she always really liked creative writing, but she did it in a notebook, and she had like novels on novels of what basically is Nancy Drew fan fiction. Sorry, Mom. But it was, and it was sitting there in notebooks, and like nobody got to read that until I dug them up, and they were awesome. So I like that if people were having these thoughts anyway, that they're getting somewhere, and that you're like using whatever's going on in your brain to like put something back out there. I kind of feel like that can't be bad, but that's just my knee-jerk thought on it.
Yeah. I feel like art itself is just like an ever-evolving medium. So like no matter what, you're just going to have to adapt to like a new form. So like short media form is pretty big. Obviously, like, everybody likes to watch the 10-second bites of something.
Yeah.
And, like our first semester, or I think our first semester, we made like a 30-second.
No, that's second semester.
Ooh, it's all coming together in one.
It's foggy now.
But we had to do a 30-second film, and like that's a super short film. So I mean, yeah, it's like right in that kind of ballpark of like very short kind of animations, and it's probably the best way now to kind of get your work out there and also get people's eyes on it more. So like, short form, put out like a 5-second animation. That's how you kind of get the ball rolling if you wanted to, and it's much more easily accessible too nowadays. So I think a lot of people can just sit
and
down
I think
make
if
stuff.
you make something that's 5 seconds long, you start to get a taste of what it would feel like to make that bigger thing, which I think welcome. I want to hold the door open for people who want to make films or really like anything, make cool stuff. And so I think you do start to get a taste of like, man, that was harder than I thought for just 5 seconds. That took me all weekend. Imagine what 3 minutes would take me, and people become part of that world, which is cool.
Yeah. And Christine, do you see these platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram hurting the process, or really helping develop and expand the value of short films?
I totally agree with what Vin and Deanna said. I really think that like the egalitarian like process where we're like there's no door or invitation we need to be in the room where films are being made, and that's somewhat new in the past like 4 or 5 decades. Like pre-1960s, you had to be allowed on set to even have access to a film camera. But as soon as I teach history probably obviously, but in the 1960s we had the Sony Porta Pack that was released, and any consumer who could afford it could buy it. And I kind of think of TikTok, YouTube, Instagram as similar. Anyone with an internet connection and a cell phone with audio and video capabilities can be a filmmaker. I think the only negative is the shift on our attention spans.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think we all should be able to be authors and should have the opportunity to publish our work to fellow humans.
Yeah. Do you have any negatives about short films? I read a little article, and some of the arguments against short films is that it's too one-dimensional. It's a challenge to tell a complete story in such a short period of time, and the pressure to compress large ideas into a small format is real. Is there any negatives at all when creating short films for you?
I guess I don't think that the words challenge or pressure are negative. I think
I
that's
agree.
good. Ooh.
Excuse me, Miss Moorehead.
I think that is part of the package. I think we would be remiss to completely replace longer form media with short form media, but I think that, like, again, I guess the more the merrier, like if I double down on that argument. I don't know. I think other than the attention span thing, only in that if people are watching short format content and getting used to it and going, oh, well, anything that's longer than, like a minute and 30 seconds, I scroll past or turn my nose up at, then that's unfortunate. Then again, we're losing people seeing cool stuff that people made. But I think if you can kind of like keep your horizons open, I'm down to open my horizons all the way down to 1 second content. I miss Vine. I like short format stuff is good too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to condense everything down into one spot for like, oh, we can't do short films. Like, I think it's accessible, and I think that's the point of art. Like you're supposed to share your thoughts, and obviously you don't have a budget to do like a 3-hour or 2-hour movie. If you do, cool, but like for the most part, you might have only enough time to do maybe a 2-minute film, and if you can get your story out in 2 minutes, do it. Like it's there for a reason, and I don't think anyone should look at it negatively. Like, and challenge yourself, right? Like that's the point of art. You evolve as an artist, and your skills grow, and the way you think grows, and the way you tell story grows. So it's like, I don't think there's really any negative other than like, we we could use a little bit of moderation on like 5-second clips on TikTok. But yeah, like,
And I think though, like I would challenge you to watch something short format and like not find a second or third dimension to it. I think it's one dimensional if that's what you made, but you can certainly make a feature length film that's also kind of one dimensional. So I don't think that that's about the format. I think that's about the stuff that you made.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah.
Christine, are you looking forward? Where do you see film and animation education headed over the next decade as a professor?
Oh gosh, I think there's a big step into virtual production and VR films, and some of our students and faculty have started to explore that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think mixing media and that kind of multidisciplinary collaboration is becoming bigger. And for myself, I work also in more experimental and projection design world, so like live media performance. So like working with video that may be a little bit different every time you see it perform. So there's almost like an ephemeral quality to it, like it's fleeting. So I think pushing that and like a return to analog is something I think we're all craving in this kind of new reality we're living with. Like, is that made by a content creator? Is that made by AI? And just the volume of content that's out there, which again, I don't think is a negative thing, but I think the pendulum swings and we react to it in that way.
Yeah, and quick before we wrap up our hour, a piece of advice you would give to a young filmmaker, or the best piece of advice that you've gotten.
Ooh. I like to tell people, make your second best idea. I think it's the closest thing. Sometimes a common piece of advice is like kill your babies in the world of film. But make your second favorite thing so that you can have fun with it and let it be a little bad, and then it'll turn out better than you think. Like, set yourself free.
And Vin,
Yeah.
same. Christine, same, ditto.
Take chances.
Yeah, take chances.
Have fun.
Yeah.
I love that. And RIT Shorts premieres on WXXI-TV on Thursday, August 28th at 8 p.m. You'll see films by RIT students, including our guest today, Deanna Moorehead and Vinh Nguyen, along with our filmmakers from RIT School of Film and Animation. Thank you all for joining me for this discussion, for this short discussion on short films here on WXXI Connections.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.